Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, as the hour is 7 o'clock, I will call the meeting to order. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff, those in attendance, and certainly those watching at home. This evening, welcome to the November 20th, 2023 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. I'd like to start by introducing the board. To my right, Selectman Dan Chartrain. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
To my left, our Clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our Town Manager, Mr. Rustine. Good evening.
Good evening.
Our Assistant Town Manager, Melissa Roy, is also here, as is our Recording Secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening, Joanna. And my name is Nico Papakostandis. The first item on the agenda this evening is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to come up and make comment to the board. We do ask that if your comments are relative to anything on the agenda, that you wait until that item comes up. And with that, if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Darius Thompson, 15 Drinkwater Road, Exeter.
Good evening.
Good evening. One thing I would like to, as a public comment, would like to see, hopefully in this next year's budget, I believe it was 2 years ago that we increased the funding for the sidewalk fund. And I've noticed in our neighborhood that starts on Drinkwater Road and Pleasant View Drive towards Grandview Terrace, and then the other end of Pleasant View Drive ends, there's been a number of young families that are there. And it has been known that I've reported to the police department when they can patrol that the 25-mile speed limit, people come down very fast. This past year, we had a lot of trick-or-treaters, and we have a lot of young families in that neighborhood. It would be great to see a sidewalk be extended from the corner of Pleasant View Ave at the very top of Drinkwater Road, extend down to the end of Pleasant View. That way, we could potentially have a traffic calming effect, and I think it would be a worthwhile investment for the board to consider as a capital improvement or a sidewalk fund project.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep.
We'll take note of that and talk with Public Works.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any other public comment this evening? And I want to look and see if there's anybody on Zoom. I don't see anybody. Okay, so we'll move on. This evening, we have the opportunity to participate once again in a swearing-in of a police officer. This is an initiative, Chief Poulin, you started several years ago, and it really is a privilege for the board and those at home to be able to witness this. So I'd invite you to the podium to introduce Tyler Sheehan.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we have been here quite a few times recently. Within the last 20 months, we've hired 9 police officers. And I can proudly say that we are fully staffed with our police right now with the addition of Officer Taylor Sheehan. That's something not a lot of agencies can say in New Hampshire, let alone the country right now. So a lot of reasons for that. Deputy Chief Josh McCain, he was our first hire in those 20 months. He really reinvigorated our hiring process to where we didn't wait till we got 15 applications and then have 1 day or 2 for oral boards. We actually, when we got a good application, we reached out to them. He made some really good connections with these folks. I think they can all attest to that. Pivotal in bringing us to where we are today. Also, the support of Rustine, Town Manager, Assistant Town Manager Melissa Roy, support of the Select Board with things like retention bonuses and things like that. Super appreciative. So it's a group effort to get here. I hope we stay here for a little bit at least. Grass is always greener, but we can make sure that Exeter is a place that they want to come to, a destination place. I think we'll succeed. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention Jason Schreiber, his work on our social media. A lot of times when we interview these folks, they mention what they see on our social media site, on our Facebook page, and they see that connection with the community that officers are having, and they want to have that themselves. So that's also a huge point. So let's talk about Taylor. Taylor Sheehan grew up in North Andover, Massachusetts, graduating from North Andover High School in 2004. He moved to the Exeter area in 2014 and continued to work in his family construction business as a project manager for many years. And then he decided to create and successfully run his own business. In 2019, Taylor decided to close the business and fully pursue his goals as becoming a police officer. He actually came to the Exeter Police Department in 2019 and met with us, but we didn't have any openings at that time. He was then hired as a full-time police officer with the town of Newmarket, a position he's held since. During his tenure there, Taylor worked at the Newmarket High School as a school resource officer and also as a patrol officer assigned to the night shifts. Additionally, Officer Sheehan is an active member of the Seacoast Emergency Response Team, where he serves as a tactical operator. He maintains numerous law enforcement certifications to include National School Resource Officer certification. We're glad that Taylor was able to make that full circle and come back to Exeter and police Exeter and serve a community that actually his family and will grow up here and experience life here in Exeter. So to be a part of that, serve a community that he also lives in is perfect. So with that, we'll observe him take his oath with Town Clerk Andy Kohler, which again, we're also grateful that she comes and does these things for us. And then he'll have his badge pinned on him by his wife, Sarah.
Terrific.
Is this when we get out of the picture?
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Taylor Sheehan,
I, Taylor Sheehan,
of Brentwood, New Hampshire,
of Brentwood, New Hampshire,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will bear faithful
that I will bear faithful
and true allegiance
and true allegiance
to the United States of America
to the United States of America
and the state of New Hampshire,
and the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the constitutions thereof.
and will support the constitutions thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Taylor Sheehan,
I, Taylor Sheehan,
do solemnly and sincerely
do solemnly and sincerely
swear and affirm
swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent on me
all the duties incumbent on me
as a police officer
as a police officer
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeable to the rules and regulations
agreeable to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution,
of the Constitution,
and enforce the laws
and enforce the laws
of the state of New Hampshire.
of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, welcome.
Congratulations, thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Always nice to start a meeting out with a swearing in, isn't it?
It really is an enjoyable initiative
It
that the
really
Chief
is.
started. Okay, back to our business at hand this evening. The next matter is the approval of our regular meeting minutes of November 6, 2023. I would first ask if there are any amendments or revisions. And seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of November 6, 2023.
So moved?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Two and an abstention here.
3-0 with 2 abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you. There are no appointments this evening. Regrettably, we do have a resignation.
No.
Thank you. We do have a resignation to consider from the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Adam Dunville has entered his letter of resignation. Did a lot of great work with the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I'm sorry to see him go. Our loss, though, from what I understand, is the Cub Scouts gain, and that was the conflict. So I spoke with him, and he would be open to coming back once his kids get a little older. So that would be welcome.
And he was also interested in the combination of the Energy Committee and the Sustainability Committee.
So we thank Adam for his work. For a number of years he was on the SACs. At this time, I would entertain a motion to accept Adam Dunville's resignation from the Sustainability Advisory Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just thank you for your time. Look forward to seeing you come back.
Yes. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0, and we thank Adam again. Our first item for discussion, action items this evening, is to hold a joint meeting with the Swasey Park Trustees, and they are here with us this evening. And Mr. Chair, I'll give you an opportunity to call your meeting to order.
All right, I will call the Swasey Parkway Trustee meeting to order at, looks like 7:10. And I will introduce the trustees. To my right is Dave Shore.
Hold on.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
To my right is Dave Short. To my left is Darius Thompson, Vice Chair, and I'm Dwayne Staples, Chairperson.
Terrific. Thank you. Welcome, and we're happy that you could join us this evening.
Thank you.
As we had discussed and promised, as we moved forward with the discontinuance of the Parkway pursuant to the warrant article of 2 years ago, we were going to have you come back to talk through next steps, and we're at that stage to discuss next steps. Public Works and Mr. Dean have put together some information for us to consider and have a dialogue and see where we go from there. So, Mr. Dean, I don't know if you wanted to kick it off. I know we have Mr. Vlasic here as well.
So, yes, I'll just say that the DPW has been working diligently on the turnaround concept. We've had VHB, our consultant, develop a sketch and a plan for that, and we actually have had this staked out in concept in the field. And I know Mr. Vlasic is here to give a brief overview and let you know what the cost estimates are and what we anticipate doing in terms of construction.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Paul Velocity, Interim Public Works Director. In your packet, you have a very short memo from me. And as the town manager said, he prodded me a few months ago to get a turnaround started already. And with that, because we have our intersection consultant in town, took him over there. We looked at the property, and he went back and he came back with a couple of sketches. One is more of a conventional type of cul-de-sac, and the other was a semi-hammerhead. You can only put the hammerhead on one side. And after reviewing that with town management, the town manager, and assistant town manager, we were thinking that the semi-hammerhead was not the best option because you're going to have to pull in, you're going to have to back out and turn around. And if you have a line of cars behind you, or a few of them want to do it, that's going to be a little tough to do. So what we did, we had a concept plan, we went back to the engineer, he revised it, and then we laid it out in the field, as the manager said, and this was right before the chili festival, and that's why the steaks aren't there anymore. We had the chili festival for viability of the project, and it seemed like it worked really good. And with that, I had the engineer out there one more time so we could discuss what to do with grading and also stormwater runoff. And after that meeting, because we're going to have a contractor on site next week, maybe this week even too, for the siphon project. I met with the owner and discussed this sketch with him, this cul-de-sac sketch. There's a few revisions to the sketch, but the concept is the same. And eventually, he worked up a cost for us. Now, let me go to that sketch that is in your packet. And then there's a...
I've looked at it. Thank you.
You see it?
That's it.
And there's a couple little scribbles on this concept sketch. And this is not a full engineered plan by any means, but it'll get you the idea of the layout. So the first note that you see on this turnaround sketch is right at the driveway to the brick building. And it says relocate turnaround to begin here. So that driveway is about 18 feet wide. So the cul-de-sac will begin right there. And then you go into the cul-de-sac or the turnaround, and everything is going to be shifted that 18 feet down. The drainage works out fine by doing that. Also, there is a green shaded area in the middle of the turnaround. That the area that has that's encompassing Swasey Parkway will still be pavement. So that's what that second note down there says. That will not be removed for grass. That will be existing pavement. And so we were thinking that this will facilitate a turnaround that flows, that several people can be ready to maneuver to turn around using this particular concept. The design allows a box truck, a delivery truck that could go through there. Sometimes there are larger vehicles that would need to turn around. And with that, I'll talk a little bit about the turnaround itself. It would be conventional roadway gravels of 12-inch bank run, 6-inch crushed gravel, and 3 inches of pavement. The road will be pitched towards the center, and in the center, in the grassed area, in the center of the turnaround, will be a rain garden where water will seep through and be collected underneath the soil. And there will be no additional runoff going to the river or anything like that through this design. So with that then, there will have to be some curb to be relocated, especially where we're going to be coming in, but there's no curb around the outside or the inside of the turnaround. And with that, stop beating around the bush, the quote from the contractor is $83,000. They could start that project this year if we so choose, with the finished paving being done in the spring of next year, or waiting for the cleanup of the siphon project to happen in the springtime and do the turnaround construction, if you're amenable to that in the spring. So that is a short talk. Any questions on the concept?
I have two questions. First of all, what is the width of Swasey Parkway currently?
I don't know right off the top of my head.
It's wider than 18 feet, isn't it? The turnaround is narrower.
It is. It definitely is.
And that leads to my second question. Will individuals accessing this section of the parkway with automobiles have a place to park along the side of Swasey Parkway still? It'll still be wide enough for them to do that, right?
Yeah, the width of Swasey Parkway is not going to change.
Yep.
And right now...
Except where the turnaround is.
Except where the turnaround is. Well, not where the turnaround is. Only the road that goes around will be 18 feet. But the width of the road will still be the same where I talked about on that bottom note there on my sketch.
Oh, right. The whole thing shifts.
Yeah, so we were picturing
To the
that
west.
there would be parking on one side of Swasey Parkway, and then cars can go in and out,
Yep.
outside of the parking area.
So to access the parking, you'd go around the turnaround and probably
That's what
Park
it's
on-
contemplated right now.
on the riverside. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Just one follow-up on that. How many parking spots would be available, estimated?
I have no idea.
That whole side of the street.
I know, but I don't know how long it is, or, I mean, is there any guesstimate of how many spots we're gonna have yet? Okay, I guess that's to be determined.
It's a pretty good stretch.
I know, but I was looking for a number. If we had one, but we don't, that's fine. And how long is the quote for the cost good for if we decide to wait till spring? Is that?
Yeah, it'll be good to springtime.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board before we turn it over to the trustees? I'm going to hold mine for now, but Mr. Chair?
Well, there were never parking spaces marked out down
Right.
there. I'm going to say that I think that road is about a mile long, so I'm going to just estimate that that's probably a half a mile, maybe a little bit less from where the turnaround is to the end of the Newfields Road. So it's going to depend on the size of the car and all, if you're going to allow
Right.
parking on that right-hand side going out.
Yeah, I never worried about how many parking spots there were before because it was an open road. Now it's going to be a very narrow area, so we want to make sure we've got some parking for people
Well,
who can't.
yeah, but years ago, there was parking on both sides of the road.
I remember.
And the roadway itself, when they redid the roadway, they narrowed it a little bit years ago from the original width. So I can't tell you exactly how wide it is at this point. But, I think that's a conversation that needs to be had on the parking down there. Are you going
I just want people to be aware of how many spots are going to be available. It is what it is.
It's hard
but-
to say.
Yeah. But, we're not talking 4. We're not talking 4 or 5, right? Maybe a few more than that.
Oh, I would say
A
so,
lot more
yes.
than that.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. I couldn't even tell you right now what a typical measurement for a parking spot is. so.
You're gonna probably do like
Thank
Mr.
you,
Shorter
Julie.
just said to me, 50 to 100. I mean, you're gonna have quite a few spaces down there
Wow,
for
really?
people to park.
Okay, thank
But
you.
the other caveat is, are you going to do some type of ADA along that stretch? Because
Mm-hmm.
right now, there's only one area there that you could use, and that's down by where the Norris Brook comes across. There is no other ADA compliant spaces there to get onto the sidewalk.
Right, so you've got it, just keep it in mind and, we can update as we know it, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have questions?
Require curb cutouts, because we don't have any curb cutouts at all along right now.
So Melissa was saying if you had some actually designated handicap parking spots, would you need some tip downs for access to the walkway? Potentially you would. So it's a matter of trying to understand where you might want to actually designate a few of those.
You got 2 places.
I can't, here's, okay, sorry, go ahead.
No,
There were 2 going on, I was listening to 2
There would
conversations
be
at once.
additional considerations for handicap
So additional
parking.
cost,
Yeah.
too, likely.
Yeah, some curb tip downs and maybe a little bit of bump out situation with the curb too.
So this 83,000 does not include curb?
No, this is only to construct the turnaround and the drainage for that. There is a fence called out here on this sketch. It does not include the fence at all. It is just the roadway so that you can use it to turn around with the drainage.
I'm sorry, does it include the rain garden too?
It does.
Okay. Is in-house something that we can handle if we needed the bump outs in the curb cuts?
Let's see what that means right now, but
Okay.
if you're asking in-house for the turnaround, I would suggest otherwise on that.
No, that's not where I was going. I meant down the road, once you guys start looking more closely at parking, the ADA parking, and what's going to be needed there. If it's not a tonight answer, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking
We
to the
can-
cost, if we have to add it.
We'll see what that means, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, any other questions or comments from the trustees you'd like to hear from you?
I'm going to open it up to.
Please.
Dave, go ahead.
One question is, have you talked to other contractors, like Bell and Flynn?
I've talked to no other contractors besides Grenice and Sons.
Are you intending to?
I did not intend to, no. This was one of those where the manager was kind of like cracking the whip to get started, and it was a perfect storm that I had the consultant and a contractor available to help with this. So I had not intended to talk to another contractor.
Mr. Dean, I brought this up, I think, at the last meeting. Isn't this something we typically put out an RFP?
So the options are, certainly we could put this out to an RFP. If we did that, it would involve an additional 10 to, from what I understand, an additional 10 to 15,000 in design work. And so the reason that we're suggesting Grenice do this is because they'll be on site. It is a convenience for sure. But that is, that's the rationale for using the contractor that's already going to be mobilized on site to be able to do the work.
I think if you brought Bell and Flynn in to do it, they could easily handle the engineering as well as Grenice can.
So just a question of the interim director. You're a licensed engineer, correct?
I am.
Yeah. So why could we use our interim director license to design this and say, here's the design, here are the specs, and you go out to bid as an RFP? Just asking the question.
I'll answer that one. Time.
I was going to just say, the interim Public Works Director is working on, 9 or 10 other things, and I don't think that it would be fair to take him away from some of the crucial things he's working on. Our Public Works Department has been understaffed for years. Mm-hmm. We're working on filling positions, and I'm not saying this because he's standing in front of me, but I'm amazed at what he's been able to accomplish. So I think to try to task him with that in a perfect world would be ideal if we were fully staffed and he was serving as the town engineer, but he's not.
But the question remains that if we're going to do this, we should put it out to bid.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Thompson. I was answering your question about the town engineer's time.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, the other option is select certain companies to take a look at it. That's certainly
we could look at
a legitimate way to do it.
Again, we could look at multiple ways of doing this, so it's not that our eyes are closed to that. It's based upon the situation that we have in front of us that we were trying to move this along.
One question I do have is that have you looked at any of the designs that would actually minimize the impact of the green space that this is actually taken away?
Yeah, we had revised from the original sketch, narrowed up the road, reviewed some of the curve radii, and so there was looks at that, other than the semi-hammerhead situation that I talked about also. That one has the least amount, but it is the least attractive of any type of organized turnaround for multiple vehicles.
And a follow-up question is that should this be fast-tracked and get moving once they get this done, and we all agree with it, everybody agrees, what's the likelihood of this being touched again with the other projects or future projects that come along, that we have another issue with the sewer line going through or something else and it has to impact this area that have to be rebuilt?
Well, there's none on the horizon that I know about. That goes with any project here. The sewer lines have been replaced. There is an electrical line that is undetermined location because of the light poles and also where it feeds the pavilion. But other than that, we don't have any other utilities. Oh, yeah, we do. We got a little bit of a sprinkler system in there, too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anything damaged as the sprinkler system would be fixed with the project.
In other words, you'd have to relocate it or possibly reinstall?
Or a cap or something like that, because you won't need it in the roadway itself.
And the other part is the pavement being used, is it semi-permeable? Or will allow water to drain through versus collect and pool?
No. It'll be conventional pavement, and like I said, it'll be pitched towards the center of the turnaround.
And as far as the box trucks going through, this has to be paved at some point, not paved, plowed for snow removal, is that correct?
Yes.
And the snowplow can get in and make that turn radius and do fine?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a couple of
Please.
things. I do have a concern about drainage between, regardless of where this turnaround is going, between the turnaround and the block building. That area is a very wet area right now. You're talking about building this turnaround, and that's going to just kind of make that a pool in there. So I would like to see some drainage that addresses that.
Well, let me comment on it. You already have a drainage situation right at that driveway right now. If you go out there today, you'll see standing water in that corner.
Correct.
When we move the turnaround to begin at that driveway, that's the time that situation will be fixed.
It will be fixed?
Yes.
Okay. And will the contractor, has there already been plant material picked for the rain garden?
The rain garden will not be plants. It will be crushed stone. Then it'll be sand on top of that, and then compost on top of that. And then any plantings would most likely be grass.
Why no plant material in there?
Just maintenance.
Yeah, I would leave the grass.
Well, Riverwoods has rain gardens with stone and plant material in it, and it works very well. So, just a comment.
I can follow up on that. We also have an example at the library on the corner of Founders Park and the bridge into the library. So take a look at that, I suppose.
Yeah, that's not quite the same situation. I know about that.
It's a steeper situation, yeah.
I think having been in the landscape maintenance side of things for a long time, to me, that's a maintenance headache if it's going to be grass. That's my comment on that. I would rather see that be plant material, and you don't need to have big shrubs in there. I think that would serve that just as well as having grass in there.
Mr. Dean, who would maintain that?
Right now, I believe the roadway would be maintained by DPW, and I believe the grass or whatever part of it is there would be Parks.
Parks and Rec?
I believe so.
So let me get this straight. This makes no sense. The Swasey, the Parkway is in Swasey Park, do we agree on that, yes? The road is part of Swasey Park, yes? Okay. And Swasey Park is losing green space for this turnaround. Whatever that is, we're losing that green space. And so what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that this green space that's in the middle would still be part of Swasey Park, but yet you're saying it's not. So you're taking all this green space away from Swasey Park by doing this turnaround. That means the road, if this little green space here, to me is still on the borders of what is Swasey Park by the definition. And this turnaround, which is needed, that green space should still remain part of Swasey Park.
That's why I asked the question.
And then it never got planted.
And I think the answer is it's to be determined at this point, as far as maintaining.
Well, I think that's important, because I think the trustees need to know if that's what they're maintaining, or I think we need to know if we're maintaining it, and if so, what the cost will be. Right, because that would be, if it's a town assumption, then it's going to be an additional cost.
And if Public Works is maintaining it, then you're correct.
Yep.
If they're maintaining the road, that's fine, but as far as the green space, as all the green space in Swasey Park, the trustees are responsible for maintaining that.
Right.
And I think it would be a nice, we know it has to be done, but it'd be a nice trade-off to minimize the loss of Swasey Park green space to allow us to maintain that.
So you're looking to maintain that space? You would like to maintain that space?
Well,
What's in it, right? If we can work together and figure out what.
That's why I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
I'm just going to say, for me, it makes no difference what's in it, because we already have a mow contractor in there. If you wanted grass, he's going to bid on that entire spot. It doesn't make sense to me to have the rec department go in there and mow that when we have a contractor already in there mowing turf. If it's plant material, again, depending on what plant material you have, I don't see why we would have anybody else go in there other than a contractor. You know, we have a contractor that goes in and prunes. If you're going to plant more of a perennial-based plant in there, we'd have somebody go in and clean it out in the fall and take care of it. I just don't see why you would have Park and Rec do that.
So I just want to be clear. The reason I'm asking these questions is because, the trustees may assume one thing. We're assuming we've got to get it all out. I mean, it's great that we've got a contractor that's ready to jump in the pool before there's any water, but we got to answer these questions.
No, I agree, and I think, again, if it's turf, it would be part of the bid to mow. If it is plant material, then it would be part of the bid to prune.
And Mr. Chair, I think we would be fine with that if it was part of the Swasey maintenance contract.
I have no problem with that, Paul. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me who maintains it, that's for sure.
Okay. It's good to ask. It's good to ask.
Yeah, and as Mr. Staples had said, they've already got a contractor doing all but the center of this turnaround here. It makes sense that they'll be there often enough.
I mean, the roadway is always going to be DPW anyway.
Correct.
So,
correct.
We all know that. That's not going to change that part.
Right.
Well, it's not going to change, if it stays grass, it's not going to change the cost either.
No.
Not at all.
So what I could do on the conversation about what goes into the center of the turnaround is I can ask the consultant about types of plantings that would be okay. Report back, and then maybe there would be a little bit of a stipend put aside for plantings or so.
So and I want to get back to that, but another question, does it make sense to take them up on their offer should we choose to use this contractor once the siphon project is over? Does it make sense to do it now while they're going to have all of their equipment there?
I will turn that back around, and do you want it now? Because you can get it now. Would you have maybe a better job if you waited till springtime? I'd say you'd have a better job if you waited.
So I'll turn it around. And I think the voters wanted it when they passed the warrant article almost 2 years ago. But I think we have to be smart about how we do it. And I think if we start the conversation now and if we start planning now, if it is most prudent to do something correctly and more thorough and have a better product in the spring, then I think that's the best way to use funds.
And a better process.
But I think having this conversation now moves this initiative along that the voters asked us to do almost 2 years ago. And then I think that if we're talking about that area that's going to continue to be maintained by the trustees, then if we're going to wait till spring, perhaps having the trustees weigh in with you to report back to the contractors to what their desires may be, what they want to maintain. Is that a fair assessment?
It is for me.
How about? Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, if they're maintaining it, they should have input,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, I would like to also hear what the consultant would come up with for plant material, so we can look at that, if that's the way that we
I
want to
don't
go.
think we need a consultant. I think we got you.
I was going to say that too.
Could we then maybe agree, and I don't know, I'm trying to remember, are you having a meeting in December or no?
No.
Okay.
No, we're not.
It's
too close to Christmas.
If the board decides tonight that we want to hold off till spring, and we can discuss that further, I mean, I think an idea would be maybe to pose some questions to Mr. Velazquez to bring back to the contractor. Perhaps he could come, if his schedule permits, to your January meeting, and we could start collaborating that way. Is that fair?
We could.
Yeah.
Is that fair, Mr. Velazquez, to go that route? Okay.
So, I do have one other question, if you don't have one.
Go ahead.
Just as we're looking at this turnaround, and a lot of emphasis on that, has anyone looked at the entrance exit, the ingress and egress of that, the way it is now? Anyone coming into the park is, if they're going to want to turn left, and that creates a potential hazard for them, anyone turning out of the exit of the Parkway on the Newfields Road end. If you turn left, you have to watch out for cars coming on the left and cars coming on the right. That's going to be an issue, and I would like to see some consideration put into make that a right turn only, so you have to go out of town, versus making that left-hand turn, or you need to put a light there because there will be accidents that will occur if we do not address that egress and ingress at the Newfields Road.
So one thing I've learned doing this job is I had a lot of great ideas that I thought crosswalks and lights would be wise until I talked to an engineer and they told me why it would be more dangerous. So I'm going to have you answer that question if you can.
Well, it just so happens that I put the sketch together of what is out there now. And it was different before. It was a little bit more of a runway towards going out of town. And we pulled that around to tee off the intersection a little bit more. So from my point of view, you've got a functioning intersection there for both egress and people entering. So I think it works just fine for two-way traffic right now.
Yeah, I pull left out of there fairly regularly and don't have an issue.
Right or left?
No.
I'm only making this as a public statement that there will come a day when an accident will occur if someone is older and they look right, left, and they don't look left again, or anybody that's even younger, if you don't look left again, that is going to be an issue because people fly around that road and come down the hill. And so whether we put some additional signage or something, let them know to either slow down or be aware of a blind driveway, because making a left-hand turn, you're looking this way to see what's coming, because you're not looking left. And I understand that you say that this is here, I'm just saying, being cautious to point that out, that anyone exiting, we need to put a sign, say, please look left twice. That's all.
Great. Mr. Chair, you had a thought?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that when we prune, when they did the sewer project, that was all sorts of different types of plant material there, and you couldn't really see left when you pull out of there. Over the years, we have made sure that when we pruned, we pruned so that we kept that line of sight when you take a left-hand turn out of there. The left-hand turn is not, it's a little dangerous, yes, depending on time of day and all, but the Parkway trustees have tried to mitigate that by making sure that the line of sight is free as it can be all the time.
Yep.
So we have done that.
Selectman Chartrand?
No, I'm good.
Back down here?
I'm good.
What was there before when you used to be able to, was it a one-way turn? I don't remember.
No.
Yeah, you could turn both ways.
You could always turn both ways coming out of
That's what I
there.
thought.
So is it the board's intention to not entertain a second company looking at that project, or?
Well, we're getting there.
Okay. You haven't forgotten it?
Wanted to hear from you
You haven't
folks.
forgot about it?
No,
okay.
I haven't.
Okay.
I forget a lot of things, but I'm still on
Okay.
point. In fact, I was just going to ask Mr. Dean, in terms of process, I understand that it may be additional cost to put together an RFP. In the past, absent of an RFP, have we gone out and solicited multiple bids from firms with whom we've worked? And I'm going to hold that thought for a second, too.
I'm trying to remember a project that may have occurred. Nothing's coming to mind.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for the Swasey. So this is a little blunt, and I apologize for being so blunt. Do any of you know of any kind of citizens petition that might be in the wind coming up directed at Swasey Parkway one more time?
Well,
First I've heard of that.
Do any of you know of anything?
No, I don't.
I don't know of anything. I will tell you that I have been asked if I was interested in putting a petition back out there. I have said no.
Great.
I've done that. I think at this point, whether I agree with it or not, I'm just trying to work to make this the best that it can be at this point. So no, I have not heard of anything, and I'm not going to put another one out there. So
Thank you. I appreciate your answering that question.
I don't know. Have you heard of anything?
No, I haven't, but
So,
they wouldn't necessarily
okay.
talk to me. I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Yep.
From a legal standpoint, Mr. Dean, don't we have a legal opinion that the judge's order is binding and the roadway has been discontinued?
Yes.
So if last year's citizens petition could not supersede the judge's order, I think our legal opinion stands that that would remain.
Would stay in place.
The road is discontinued.
Just a point, just confirmation that even though the road is discontinued up to that point, and it's continued from another point, that road is still part of Swasey Park, yes? It's in Swasey Park, yes?
That whole area is Swasey Park.
All right, the whole area, okay. So that any ordinances that are for the park also include the road?
I don't know about that, Mr. Dean.
As far as I know, it would include, it depends what the ordinance is and how it applies. We have road ordinances, we have parking regulations.
Like a no dogs ordinance.
That speak to the way, but again.
Thank you for your
the road's been discontinued, so it's not going to apply there.
Right.
But the reason the question was that road is in Swasey Park, so if there's an ordinance that says, as example, no dogs allowed, it would apply to that road. That's been discontinued because it's part of the park. And it also applies to the road that is in the park. Okay.
So back to the process, Mr. Dean. I have to be careful how I ask this question. The contractor working on the siphons, Mr. Velasic, is this type of project constructing this roundabout, is that in their purview? Is that something that is within their expertise?
Yes.
In my town a few months ago.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Yes, Mr. Thompson?
How is this going to be paid for?
We're getting there too.
Okay.
Get processed first, and then
that's fine.
Then we'll figure out writing out the check. So this is within their purview. Okay.
Yes.
$83,000. That does not include curbing.
Correct.
And what else didn't it include?
Did not include gates.
Gates. Okay.
And any curb cuts for ADA access.
Just ballpark. I mean, what do you think gates and curbing would run?
Well, I'm not sure we need the curbing for around the turnaround. You might want to keep cars on the road for sure to have it that way, but it's not required for the functionality of the turnaround.
Is it safer?
It's not required for the turnaround to function correctly. If you wanted to have curb there, I'm going to have to do a quick calculation real quick here, but I'll come up with something.
That's okay.
We have a tradition.
Mr. Chartrand's been crafty with a napkin in the past. So while we're doing that, Mr. Dean, do you have any funding ideas to discuss?
So there's a couple of buckets of money. One is the ARPA funds, obviously, and one is road aid that we could look at.
What is that?
Additional road aid that the town just got in from the state DOT.
Where does that money normally go?
It goes to whatever, if the town wants to use it for paving, it can use it for paving. So if the town wants to use it for sidewalks, it can use it for sidewalks.
Sorry to blurt that out, Mr. Chair.
How much is that?
It's in excess of 80,000.
Do we have a ballpark ARPA balance? Ballpark?
It depends on, Corey just handed me, I'm sorry, we just had a meeting.
That's okay.
I apologize. It depends on if we had sort of, we're not going to say earmarked, but we had, I don't know. He's got it.
How'd you make out?
Okay, so I don't have a scale on this plan. I don't have my scale with me, but it does have some dimensions on it. So to install curb around the outside of that turnaround, I'm coming up with about $9,000 extra to do that.
So that brings us up to 92.
Well, what would be the advantage of putting curbing around the outside?
That, as I mentioned, would only keep vehicles on the roadway and not going off to the outside of the turnaround.
I'm not sure that you need to do that. I think you could do some type of hybrid shoulder to keep, if somebody did go off of the outside of that. Certainly if, inside, regardless of whether it's, if it's turf, here's another reason not to have turf in the middle, because if somebody was to go off into the middle, you'd constantly be fixing that. If you were to use that stone rain garden idea, that would be a little less abrasive on that. But I think if you were to use a hybrid type of area on the outside of that instead of curb, because again, from a maintenance issue, you're going to put curbing there on that turnaround, and again, it's going to be a maintenance issue to get on and off it, to plow it. I'm not so sure that I'm not so sure that it's worth the $9,000 it's going to cost you to curb the outside of that.
You make a good point.
So sorry to answer is it a good time to answer that question?
Perfect time.
So as we talked about, north of $80,000 in road aid, the exact number is $84,810. That's in 2023 road aid. So we would look at that, and this was using an estimate of $85,000. So we would look at that as a funding source for this project.
To go back to the curbing for a minute, so one of the concerns that I have is safety. If we have a large-scale event and we have 500 people in that field and we have somebody in that turnaround that accidentally hits the gas and drives into that crowd, now that can be stopped with other things besides curbing. So whether it's curbing or you use the word and I am, what? Bollards. So we need something there. We don't want to have large groups of people and then we have a car driving to go to the turnaround and hop the grass for a mistake. So it was a safety reason we were having the discussion about curbs or doesn't matter. But I think that it does have to be part of the conversation at some point.
Understand, but the curbing is not going to give you the safety concern that you're concerned about.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me whether it's curbing, whatever it is. Let's make sure we don't forget to have that discussion. I think that needs to be part of the process.
And then there's the cost of gates. Did we look into that? And what are gates running in 2023?
The gates?
Yeah,
you're looking at me. You almost have to look at the entrance to the park on both sides. You got some nice granite blocks there, and so whatever you have demarcating where you can't go, but you still allow people to go through, I would suggest would look something similar to both ends, so something architecturally similar. And I didn't even go there with trying to figure that out. I was just trying to put a turnaround out there right now.
Yep. So let's look at where we're at. Some great questions and good conversation. One more point?
Well,
Two?
The gate idea. So coming off of Water Street, you're going to have a gate there. Is that's what your thought process is, correct?
Or something.
Or something. So stop and just hear me out on the
Please,
or something.
of course.
Because, when we talk about that gate and we talk about leaving the now not roadway there for emergency purposes, if we have an emergency vehicle that has to get in there, the gate is going to be locked, I'm assuming, regardless of what you use for a gate. So that means that emergency personnel are going to have to get out, unlock the gate, open the gate. Have you looked at, and Mr. Vlasic, this would be a question for you, have you looked at some type of spring-loaded mechanism that would block the road, but an emergency vehicle could run through it, have it compressed down, and then pop back up after it goes over it?
I haven't looked at any option for any gate whatsoever.
And with any option for any gate, are you looking at things that are timed, where that, hey, dawn to dusk is when it's supposed to be open and closed. Well, dawn to open, dusk it closes. Remind everybody to get out before dusk with your car. If that's something that you're thinking about with the gate, there should be some timing mechanism and/or some mechanism if emergency personnel need to come through, they hit a button, remote control, thing goes up like if you need to go through, set the red lights when the ambulance come through, but they turn the lights red to stop traffic so they can go through. So, again.
I think you said that we haven't got that far.
We got that far yet, so.
But I think we're talking about the part of the Parkway that's going to be reserved for pedestrians only.
That was my impression.
Yeah. So there wouldn't be any issue with cars being in there beyond the hours.
But you bring up a good point about an emergency vehicle.
Well, and
That's a good point.
Where is the gate going to be at the other end? Or whatever you're going to use to block that?
On the other end?
No, in the middle.
Down by the pavilion.
You mean in the middle?
Well, in the middle.
Yep.
Something.
But I'm going to say that in all of that legal wrangling and all, and the vote was to only go to the pavilion. Your gate actually goes past the pavilion that's shown on this picture. So the vote was to close the Parkway to the pavilion, and that's what the judge defined in his judgment.
Yeah, I don't think we have any interest in building something that's outside of the scope of what the warrant article.
But that becomes a problem during special events. If you have a concert down there and your gate is on the other side of the concert, you've now allowed cars to drive in front of your event.
If there's a concert or an event, isn't the entire thing closed like it is now?
Not if there's a gate there, we would be allowing people to drive down, which actually helps with handicap parking. If there isn't a gate there, we can
So we're going to be changing the permitting process, is what you're saying?
change the permit process.
But when you permit the Parkway for a special event, the entire roadway is closed.
Depends on who's doing it, but yes.
Most of the time, right? I'm thinking of the concerts, I'm thinking of the Chili Fest, so it really wouldn't matter at that point, right? For a concert.
If the gate is where we're talking about on that paper, you could actually use that part of the road if the permittee allowed it, and then you actually could have seniors come down and drive closer to the event, which I think was some of the goal in some of this.
So, just from experience of managing other events that we permit the Parkway and the roadway, we always made certain, and this happened at an event when I was down there doing what the board agreed upon, is to put the no dog signs down. There was somebody hosting the event, and I suggested to them, if you're going to let cars come in this way, someone needs to man this, because if they do not man that gate manually, someone can come in and come through all the way. And sure enough, someone did come through all the way that was not part of the event. Didn't really slow down. So whatever you are deciding to do to make certain that it's clear in the permitting process, that somebody needs to man that gate if they're using that for a roadway, and that there should be some other stopping point or other safety mechanism to prevent someone from coming through, just as Selectwoman Belanger said, anyone have an accident in the curb and coming across, you need to make certain we're taking care of those precautions as well. So.
And I will say that I did ask that question when the lawyer was here, and we were talking about whether the citizen's petition would pass or not, and we were talking about what his judgment was. Where did that stop in the Parkway in accordance to the pavilion? So I'm going to make a hard stand on that. I'm not going to apologize, because that's what was voted. Close it to the pavilion. That's what the judgment from the judge said. And if we're going to change it, then we need to change it the correct way.
So, Dwayne, when you say, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, is it okay to ask a question? When you say to the pavilion, are you saying the center of the pavilion?
Well, that was my question when...
No, but what's your interpretation?
My interpretation is to the pavilion, to the Water Street side of the pavilion.
So
That's what,
So the pavilion should include the turnaround? Is that what you're arguing?
I'm not, well, shouldn't include the turnaround, but there shouldn't be a gate on the Newfield side of the pavilion. It shouldn't be blocked off.
But what about protecting, okay, yeah, so that's part of the permitting process. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I agree with it, but I think I understand it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just,
I want to be clear.
I'm just saying what.
Yeah, I hear you.
What the town attorney and all that was, and what was voted. So.
Before I sum up here, any other thoughts or questions?
Dave?
Just that I don't think I've ever, maybe I've disagreed with you in the past, but this is one thing I think I disagree with you on. I think from a safety standpoint, if we're going to go with this turnaround concept, the way it's drawn, I think we need to go with the gate at the far side of the turnaround for safety purposes. Even if it's not strictly adhering to what the judge laid out there, I think it's the practical thing to do. So.
I have another option that is a low-cost thing that can be done. Just put a big line down the middle that says no parking, no vehicles beyond this point. It still adheres to what the judge said. Here's the pavilion, Newfield Road to the side, to the pavilion, that's what the road is closed. You make this section kind of like a demarcation zone where basically no cars can park or go unless it's permitted allows it to be. Put big stripes across, whatever. That's a lower cost solution.
And people will.
If we have to put something there, then consider putting a Jersey barrier. Kind of right in the middle, where a car really can't go by, but it could if it had to, but put a Jersey barrier there. Until people get reinforced that no cars are supposed to go this way. And the other thing I wanted to offer as a suggestion, if you're going to put curbing or something around, let's look at what's at the transfer station for all the curbing that we've already taken up. Is there any of that can be repurposed, reused to put together something in an artistic way that actually serves a safety purpose as well, saving the town $9,000.
Thank you. So to sum up, I think, and thank you, by the way, for thoughts, conversation, collaboration, which will be ongoing. We think, and I'd like going to get a consensus from the board, we think we want to wait until spring because we're going to get a better product. We have a quote. We think we found some method to pay for the project. I get conflicted on the idea that we didn't get a second or third quote. However, we have a project that's been waiting 8 or 9 years to get finished on Kingston Road that the voters are incredibly anxious to get finished. And the reason it hasn't been finished for the last couple of years is just trying to find companies that are ready to do the work. We have a company here that this project falls within their scope of expertise. They're familiar with the area. They've given a quote. They've done some work. They're doing some work. And again, they know the area and they've committed that they could be available to start this project either now or in the spring. I would hate to have this drag on for 6 or 7 years because we couldn't find somebody to come in to do the work. So I'm asking the board for conversation and to consider as we wrap up here, deciding if we want to wait till spring and also deciding that we strike while the iron's hot with the contractor with whom we're familiar, who's done work for the town in the past. And then I'll open it up for the board.
I agree with starting in spring. I'd rather have a better, more durable product than starting with the ground starting to freeze. There is an argument to be made for using the same contractor and an engineer because of their familiarity, and we have done single source awards in the past on different projects because of those reasons, as well, really because of those reasons, being familiar, we're familiar with them, they're familiar with the work that we need to be done, where we're doing it, and what our standards are. So that's a possibility. I'm not saying that's the way we should go, but it is an option to just go with single source for some pretty good reasons.
Any other thoughts from the board?
I think that we need more conversation and more collaboration between these two boards. So that, for me, is a reason to wait until the spring. But I do like the fact that we have a contractor who's given us, I think it's a reasonable bid. I rely on your judgment on that, Paul, but it's reasonable.
It is. I did take off using some of the Salem Park Street numbers, inflated them some because that was right as COVID was starting, and I come up a little bit higher.
So they've actually offered us a little bit of a...
Well, it's a decent number, I think.
Yeah, it's a decent number. So I'm inclined to try to lock that in, given the difficulty we've had in getting contractors to bid on our projects. But I do think that we need more collaboration between these two boards to work out exactly what is going to happen. And that's why I want to wait till the spring.
So procedurally, Mr. Dean and Mr. Vlasic, if we could re-engage with the contractor and maybe try to get, something a little bit more than this to move forward, indicate to the contractor that we would want to look at possibly doing this in the springtime. And then in the meantime, let's reserve January. I'm the select board rep to the trustees. We can appear to discuss the next steps with the area in the middle, and then maybe also use that forum to give you an update on where we're at with the contractor. And then bring it back to the board, have you come back. And also solicit public comment.
Could we get a reminder of the current ARPA funds available?
Sure. The ARPA funds that are available right now are $232,851. There are a couple of projects that we're looking at, but that's the amount of that's the amount.
Okay. Anything else from either the board or the trustees?
Only question is that the only bucket of funds that could be used for this in the event that there's another project that supersedes us? Is there another source of funds without having any impact to the residents to be able to complete this?
So I mentioned earlier the road aid bucket of money that is available, and ARPA funds, both could be used without any taxpayer impact.
You got anything going?
I don't have anything, no.
Well, let's adjourn it then.
I'm good.
I'm good. Mr. Short tells me that he's good.
I'm good.
So
we'll let you adjourn your meeting if that's your pleasure.
Yes. So I will make a motion that we adjourn.
8:14.
Looks like 8:14.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
So being the select board rep to the trustees, I will say this is probably your longest meeting at 1 hour and 3 minutes because they're usually about 20 to 27, so.
I apologize, I couldn't keep it
in all seriousness, thank you, the three of you for coming, and we'll continue the collaboration.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think Paul wanted to say.
No, I'm good now.
No, he's good.
Oh, come on, Paul. What do you, come on.
I wasn't getting the sign language. We were trying to get, Melissa was trying to tell us.
Dwayne?
Thank you.
Sorry about that question.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thanks, Dave.
And Dwayne.
Good night.
Thanks.
No, I always stand with you.
Good night, nice to see you again. Take care.
Good night.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Vlasic, I appreciate it. Okay, next up, we have Renee Allen is back to talk about the donation from the Daughters of American Revolution for a sign. The the Winter Street Cemetery. We had a very thorough presentation. The board was very enthusiastic, and I think Selectwoman Gilman wanted to present it to
Yes, the Heritage
Commission, so I'll turn it to you.
Well, unfortunately, I did not get it onto the agenda for the last Heritage Commission. However, in speaking to the chair of the commission, not anybody else, not a quorum, there really is no problem with the proposed sign. It's very similar to ones that we already have for either L-chip or even our own Great Dam sign. It's simple and direct, and the verbiage you're going to get will really indicate what's important about that cemetery with the Revolutionary War heroes that are buried there. So the proposal is the sign that's pictured mounted on poles.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and I think that is not invasive to the cemetery. It doesn't. I think the walls are actually impractical to try to mount something like this on anyway. So it is my.
We're going to move forward.
Yeah, it's my opinion. We should move forward.
Renee, matter of information, you also require a formal letter
Yes, we do, to submit with the grant application.
from the select board or the town manager, or
Whoever owns the property.
Mr. Dean, will that be coming from the board or you, the letter?
You can come from either one. I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Since our enthusiasm has not waned at all, I would entertain a motion to accept the donation of a sign from the New Hampshire State chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution honoring the Black Revolutionary War soldiers from New Hampshire, and to authorize the town to place the sign in an appropriate location at the Winter Street Cemetery, and to further authorize the town manager to sign all formal letters of support from the board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, moving along, we have the Assistant Park and Rec Director, David Tovey, with us this evening to go over field use policies and procedures, which I believe the Rec Advisory Committee and your department have been working on for months.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, we're excited to hear this.
All right. I will try and keep this short and sweet for you all, but hopefully you've all had a chance to read through the 3 documents we attached with our memo for your packet. You should have a field use application form, the annual verification of field allocation eligibility form, and our the more lengthy document, field allocation policies and procedures. 2 main reasons we are presenting all of this to you. Number 1, our athletic facility rental rates have not been updated, and I think it was about 20 years or so that Greg told me. So it's about time we revisited those and took a deep dive into what is the going rate in our community and the Seacoast for field rentals. So with these new, or these proposed rates, we feel confident that we'll be able to improve our cost recovery efforts. And if there are those unexpected costs that come up, say an irrigation system needs to be updated or fixed, we don't have to rely on our revolving fund as much. So we can start trying to build up some of our reserves through these new rates, which is exciting. The other reason is we're fortunate enough that we have high demand for our athletic facilities in town. We're seeing more and more user groups coming in and wanting to rent our field space, specifically the rec park down at Hampton Road. So we've clearly stated our field allocation policies and rules and expectations of the renters, how to properly maintain the field. People may have the best intentions, but do something that's incorrect and thus causing us more money. Everything from our weather cancellation policy, listing all the questions that we get from season to season from these renters. And we just want to be clear and transparent with everyone. we want to do this in the most equitable manner we can, but we also want to do it in the best interest of the community. So hopefully this is going to help everyone moving forward. So with that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
Well, Dave, I think you really hit it when this is very long overdue, and I know the committee worked hard, and though reading through the policies and procedures as revised, there is some redundancy along the way. I don't see that as a problem because you're dealing with organizations that are not just in Exeter, but from around the area,
correct,
around the state. And I think that, again, though there's redundancy, I think it will help eliminate any future conflict that you may have experienced in the past.
Yes,
so
that's what we
I'm
hope.
fine with that. Selectwoman Cowan, you're the select board rep to the.
I am, and we did spend a lot of time talking about the various implications and repercussions of this, and it does seem really overdue in terms of being able to keep up our field so that we remain a destination and also have enough money to cover the maintenance and making sure that we're not the only we're not the only sort of game in town in terms of where it is a cheap date to have a tournament. So we want to really carefully balance that. We think that we've come up with a really good plan here. I'm happy to answer questions, but truthfully, you should direct them at David.
Any questions for Mr. Tovey?
Just some suggestions in the language. Do you want me to do that? I think it's great.
Yeah, before we make any motions, yeah.
Okay, so on page 6, it says, and I don't know, do we have this vetted by an attorney or no? You guys just do this in-house, right?
Yeah, an attorney has not looked at this.
Okay, so number 1, it says, the end of it, it says that, will be asked to vacate the premises. I just don't know if that's strong enough. I'm sorry. That will be asked to and shall vacate or something. And just suggestions because I just think it leaves it open-ended there. And just one more. Number 18 on the next page. Number 7 on parking where it says will be towed. Should we add at owner's expense?
Great suggestion.
Thank you.
What number was that?
Number 18
Thank
on
you.
page 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
My comment is I think this is great, and I'm in support of it.
Would the board be inclined to move this evening with the 2 revisions as proposed by Selectwoman Belanger?
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. If there's no other comments or questions, then I would entertain a motion rather to adopt the revised Exeter Field allocation policies and procedures as amended by Selectwoman Belanger this evening and implement these policies and procedures effective January 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And you got those 2 revisions?
Yes, got
Okay.
them.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have our Economic Development Director, Mr. Darren Wyndham, this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you all doing?
Doing
I have 3 items for this evening. I'm not quite as tall as David here, so I'll just kind of bring this guy down. The first one is a consideration for the New Hampshire BEA, Business and Economic Affairs, Economic Revitalization Zone Extension for 5 years for Holland Way. In your packet, you have a map that shows this area. In the memo, it lists the map and parcels that we have. We've seen some investment there, as we all know, but the area still has wetlands, it still has challenges, it does not have water sewer, so I would propose that we extend this for 5 years. The benefits to the businesses is that they can get a break in their business enterprise and business profit taxes, but this in no way affects anything that the town puts forth. So it has no effect on us, just positive, and it's state taxes. So kind of a no-brainer, good stuff, and just looking to see if you folks want to go 5 more years with it.
Any questions for Mr. Wyndham? Mr. Chartrand?
What was the building that went in there in the last 2 years?
Well, CA Design purchased Building B from Osram, and they're building that out with an extension. Ford added their area where there's more vehicles out there, and then there's a parcel that is under contract right now, which is the Blanchard parcel, which is the parcel between, I apologize, I think you're talking about Palmer-Sicard.
That's what I'm talking
right.
about.
Right, Palmer-Sicard did go in between the time we had the first ERZ and then now, and you're right, so that building, CA Design, Ford, and now the parcel between Palmer-Sicard and Osram is under contract.
So which of those 4 developments along Holland Way involved a consideration of these ERZ
I believe,
benefits?
to my knowledge, they all took advantage of it, because if you put more structures in, hire new people, that's how you qualify to utilize the designation.
So this made it attractive, more attractive to all 4 of them?
Absolutely.
And it was critical in their decision making?
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
And the extension you're seeking includes all of the properties that are listed in your memo?
Yes, sir. And there's a couple that aren't developed that are available for development, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you like all of these properties in the motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the extension of identified parcels as an economic revitalization zone, or ERZ, per RSA 162N, to include the specific properties, map 52, lot 112, map 51, lot 17, map 65, lot 123, map 66, lot 1, map 66, lot 1-1, map 66, lot 2, map 70, lot 103, map 70, lot 101, and map 69, lot 39.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
I think we have a public hearing opening.
We do. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing for the RSA 79E application for 85-87 Water Street.
Whoops, I'm sorry. I'd like to recuse myself before you guys open.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Selectwoman Belanger has recused herself. Go ahead, sir.
If possible, I'd like to sort of just quickly go through what it is and then have Mr. Ponte answer any questions specific to the project.
Fantastic.
So what Mr. Ponte is requesting for 85 to 87 Water Street is a Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive, or RSA 79 ECHO. In your packet, you're going to see the application received September 29th, received by my office, deemed complete September 29th, 2023. The application notes that the rehabilitation cost for Mr. Ponte's building totals $2.466,641 million, so a little more, almost $2.5 million, which meets the 15% of the assessed valuation requirement set forth in the legislation. The current assessed value of the property is $679,900, so about $680,000. So the way this works is you folks hold a public hearing. After the public hearing, or in the application, I apologize, the application outlines what public benefits that Mr. Ponte is asserting that his project meets. You folks would, having looked at the application, determine whether it does meet some of the or all of the requirements. In this case, if you choose to believe that the public benefit has been met, you would decide the period of tax relief, which is between 1 and 11 years. If the tax relief is granted, a covenant to protect the public benefit is identified. That the covenant needs to run at least as long as the term of the incentive. It can run twice as long if you so choose. To date, we have only had them run as long as the incentive. The covenant is reviewed by our legal counsel at the applicant's expense if you do grant the incentive. And in terms of the actual project, Mr. Ponte, would you like to get up and explain to these folks what it is you're doing? Sure. Great.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So the Jambrin Block, which is directly across the street from the bandstand, is in desperate need of a renovation. And 2 floors are totally vacant, not being used. There's 3 apartments currently. We plan to have 8 when it's finished. There's 1 retail. We plan to have 2. And we're going to bring the building back to its original state, so it looked more like it did when it was built. And I don't know if you've seen the pictures of it, or I know Julie has. But so it's one of Exeter's, I think, most important buildings in downtown because it's a big mercantile building. The beams are massive in the attic, and it's been neglected for years. And although it's a lot of money, and I really don't want to spend that kind of money, but it has to be renovated. There's really no choice other than turning it over to a contractor to buy it and do it himself. But I've been in Exeter for 50 years, and I think I should do it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant?
No, I've seen the project twice, so I'm very familiar with it, both the Heritage Commission and the Historic District Commission.
Selectman Chartran.
So the additional units, is it all being created out of the existing space, or are you adding additional space?
No, in the back we are adding, but on the original footprint, there's a building there now that the
Heritage Commission said.
Yeah, they want it.
Oh, is that like lean-to thing that's used for storage?
Yeah, so it's going to go out as far as, that's going to be torn down, and it's going to go out as far as that and up.
So you're adding additional usable space?
Above that.
Yeah, the footprint stays the same, it's just additional.
And are you renovating what's being used for storage right now as well?
No, that's being torn off.
It's being torn off, and then you're taking that footprint and building up. So you are basically restoring the building to its original footprint.
Right.
That's awesome. And the units that you're adding, there's a reference to people who work in the downtown or work in the building. Are they being reserved in any way for those folks, or is that just a for instance?
Well, the tenants are there would always have the right to come back if they wanted to. Obviously, the rents are going to change because of the costs that are involved in renovating it.
That was my next question. There's no kind of mechanism to offer these at below market. You'll offer them at market, correct? To help recoup the cost of the renovation.
I mean, I've got a huge mortgage to pay unless you want to kick in some dough.
Just asking. I'm just asking because there was a sense in the application that I just had this vague sense that they were being reserved in no way, and there's nothing below market necessarily.
No. It was only 10 years ago, it was only 1.1 million. Today, it's 2.5 million. The bank almost didn't go for the mortgage because they thought it was too much money for downtown Exeter.
And you're referring to the money for the renovation and build out.
They thought it was a little bit overboard.
Yeah.
And it's a big risk to us to put that kind of money into that building. I love Exeter, I've been here for 50 years, but it's not Portsmouth. It doesn't bring the rents that Portsmouth brings.
Yeah.
Portsmouth would be no issue, but Exeter, you can't get that kind of rent money.
And I have no additional questions, including asking Mr. Conti whether he loves Exeter. I know for a fact that he loves Exeter. Thank you.
Thanks.
So there's five additional apartments you're...
5 additional.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was 8.
Well, there's 3.
Altogether.
There's 3 now.
Oh, there's 3 now plus, okay, right.
What about, is there ample parking?
We've got
Zoning relief.
we received it from the ZBA, I guess it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
They've given you a
But we
exception.
did find out something recently that we didn't realize, but that's a private way behind the stores. When you call the town, if anything happens back there, other than plowing once, they want nothing to do with it. I found out that I own, the Jambrin Block owns the land right up to Shaw's building, And the engineer, Fred Emanuel, said that in fact his fire escape was on the property, on our property.
Okay.
So we have room to park along the building if we had to, if they had to, if they were stuck.
Thank you.
They will.
Okay, there are no other members of the public present, and nor there's any members on Zoom, so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, public hearing's closed, we bring it back to the... Did you want to walk through criteria?
Okay. We need to find what public criteria or public benefit is provided by this project. I'm not going to give years. I'll wait to hear from the rest of you, but I think that the project satisfies the public benefit of, number one, enhancing the economic vitality of the downtown by providing more retail space and residential space within the center of town. Number two, it enhances and improves the structure that is culturally and historically important. As you've heard, and I've seen twice, the building's going to be restored basically to its original beauty. And this is one of the more exciting projects we've had before the Historic District Commission in a long time. So I believe that meets one of the public benefits. And let's see, promotes preservation and reuse of existing building stock so that the inherent embodied energy continues to be used as opposed to new construction, which is not as dense and as energy efficient, surprising to many people. And the last one is that it promotes development of the municipal center.
So it's 5 for 5?
It's, no, I didn't put on the residential housing one because, only because they're not going to be market rate.
Right. So
It is providing the housing in the urban town center, so we could say 5 for 5.
I know, but that's a little.
Or 4.
But
I'm waiting for your inputs.
It meets 5 of the criteria.
Yeah.
In your judgment. I always rely on your judgment on these things.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
I know, we'll take it.
Any thoughts on this?
On years? You know me, I always like to go longer. I like to reward folks that are investing in the downtown, so I'll hold back.
Well, I also think that there is, it's hard to say what's going to happen in Exeter, but I also don't think that it would be hard to, Exeter is a happening place and Exeter is a desirable place, which is also, why this development, why it wants to happen. So I, tend to lean towards your generosity and also want to make sure that we're doing what's best for the taxpayers.
So the recommended years from the 79, which are not, it's all up to, not mandated, that there's 5 years, there's a period up to 5 years for the project, and then you can add on 4 years or 2 years for a project that results in new residential units. 4 years if it includes affordable housing, which this does not. And then we can add another 4 years for the substantial rehabilitation to a qualifying historical structure. So that would be for 6, 5, 11 max. I think the longest.
Have we ever done an 11?
We've done 9.
9.
It is a substantial amount of investment.
It's a substantial amount of investment, which could, if we want to talk about the 9, we could talk about the 9 years. What do you think?
Well, we did adopt one of these right after I came on the board in March. And I personally received some pushback.
About the length of time?
Yeah, I had people approach me and say,
It was 5 years?
What did we do with the Smith building?
5 years.
We did 5. I think this is more, oh, I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead.
I also received some comments about that.
I think this is, restoring the historical facade of the building matters a lot to me. And I think we've got to include some years for that. Adding more residential space downtown, that matters a lot to me as well. So I guess when I walked through this, and you're going to make me say a number first.
I came in remembering the application from earlier this year.
Yeah.
It was a different application, albeit. All of the points that you raised, both of you have raised, are valid points, and I think it's going to improve the downtown. I also know that we all have received some pushback. We're going to have a discussion later on this evening. And as Selectwoman Cowan said, Exeter is a very desirable place to be right now, particularly the downtown. And I think we have to balance that with the taxpayers. So I came in comfortable with the 5 that we gave previously this year. But I'm going to I will consider any other thoughts.
So I came in at 7, and it was because of 5 plus 2 for the restoring the facade, which is incredible. How much of the project cost is tied to the restoring the facade?
Total project?
No, just the front, just the work you have to do on the front facade.
It was in the paperwork. I just don't want to shuffle my papers. So I was kind of, the number in my mind was 7. This is a different project than the one we did in the spring.
I understand.
For me, because of that restoration of the historical facade.
Yeah.
That is a big deal.
It was 1.18, but because the Historical Society wanted the windows changed to, what was it, aluminum, as opposed to vinyl?
Yes.
That drove the price up another $75,000 or
So
$100,000.
roughly half the cost is the restoration of the facade? Really? I didn't have that in my mind. So yeah, I guess I'm very comfortable given that with the 7 years. But I'm willing to compromise always, especially to avoid pushback.
I have to say I agree with Mr. Chartrand. I was going to go for 5 years, but my only public benefit was all the historical basis of the project, and that's up to 4 years. But there, the public benefits that I outlined need some recognition other than just my favorite things. So that's why I was going to recommend 7 years also.
So we got 2 7s and a 5. Selectwoman Cowan.
6.
I could live with that.
Yes.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would see this is where I'm not good at this, Nico. I rely on your superpower.
Look at this page.
I'll let you do it.
All right. I move to approve the application for tax relief under 79E for the project at 52 to 54 Water Street because it meets the following public benefits. It enhances the economic vitality of the downtown. It enhances and improves a structure that is culturally and historically important. promotes the preservation and reuse of existing building stock. It promotes the development of the downtown, and it increases residential housing. And I would make that relief for 6 years.
Adding in that the covenant should be reviewed by our legal counsel, if you want to.
Thank you.
You want this?
I'm going to keep going on the motion.
It's the last one. That's right.
That the covenant that is within the RSA 79E should be reviewed by our legal counsel and the applicant's expense. There it is.
I would second that motion if that is a complete motion.
Okay, thank you for the motion. We have a motion and a second for 6 years. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair says aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Wenham.
Thank you.
How soon are you going to start with that?
Did you notice
Tell him how soon you're going to get started with that?
Yes.
That's right. December, he guesses.
It starts in December?
That's what we're hoping.
Awesome.
This is one we want to get done quick. Okay.
So you mean next week, December?
That's what we're hoping. Get it moving.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're tomorrow testing for hazardous.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Good luck with the project.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Oh, shoot.
Go ahead.
All right. Now that's done, let's deep six the whole thing. Okay, here we go. So this is discussing the status of the Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive, RSA 79E. And if it's okay with, if you guys are okay, I'd like just to read it because
Please.
it's public.
Yep.
Okay. Nearly a decade ago, the town of Exeter voted to adopt the Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive, RSA 79 ECHA, for the purpose of encouraging private investment, particularly in the downtown area. At the time, several properties were underutilized, in disrepair, and in need of financial injection. These included the former Ioka Theater, the former Loaf and Ladle Restaurant, and the historic Smith Building. Owing to this economic development tool, and under the guidance of the Select Board, Exeter has seen recipients of 79E employ these resources and, combined with their own, have created new businesses such as Sea Dog Brewing and Vino Avivo. When Exeter opted to adopt 79E, Exeter and our regional economy was in a different place. Now, with little to no vacancies in our downtown and Seacoast, New Hampshire buzzing with new investment, continuing to offer 79E is, in the estimation of Exeter's Housing Advisory Committee, or HAC, no longer necessary. As this is the case, the Select Board and citizens of our community should take stock and decide if this is a tool the town should keep or sunset. The New Hampshire legislature has recently added new nuances and tools, such as housing opportunity zones to RSA 79E, and thus the version Exeter adopted in 2014 is no longer current. In order to make use of these recent changes, would need to re-adopt the newest legislation. Exeter's HAC and staff agree that even with these changes, retaining the 79E tool is not necessary to meet Exeter's current goals at this time. While the Select Board retains discretion on how to employ the original version of RSA 79E as long as it is in the town's toolbox, it may be time for the board to put forth a warrant article abolishing this incentive as antiquated and currently unnecessary. The time may come in the future when it makes sense to re-employ such an incentive, and if so, Exeter would have the opportunity to re-adopt the newest, most effective version of the legislation, including creating new boundaries for the same. So, all that is to say that we took a hard look at this, the Housing Advisory Committee. You have several staff members, including the town manager, the assistant town manager, the town planner, building and codes, myself, and then you have several volunteers, including a Selectwoman Belanger, sorry.
It's okay.
And we all unanimously came to the conclusion that probably at this point, considering with the pushback we've all received, considering the fact that we have no vacancies, that we really don't need this tool anymore. And so, at least at this time. Now, I know that the map shows other locations that we want to see investment, because the changes that have taken place, and there are more changes that may come, because the legislature is looking at other options for 79E, that it may be wise, at least in my opinion, and there's certainly a Housing Advisory Committee's opinion, to let it go now, possibly put a warrant article together, abolish it, and then in the future, if we feel we need it, create new zones, areas that maybe Portsmouth Ave or other areas that we want to see investment, and create the tool, and then not necessarily use the full legislation. However it comes out, we can, the great thing about this incentive is that we have the ability to make it fit our community. So we can get rid of it for now, reassess, and then if we choose in the future, pick the areas we most feel like we need investment, and then pick the portions of the tool that we think make the most sense, and then see if the public goes for it.
So bring it back via warrant article?
Potentially, if we choose to.
Okay. We'll start with you.
Okay, so I just want to piggyback, if you will, on something. So we don't know the language for the housing opportunity zones yet, so that's another thing that we considered. But we went through this, 3 meetings at least?
At least.
Yeah, we vetted this pretty closely. So one of the things that we would like to consider for future as an advisory position here, that in the future we consider an element of workforce housing to be included. And also as Darren said, Portsmouth Ave in particular was of interest to the Housing Advisory Committee to consider this for a future area. But yes, thank you. You, Darren, pretty much got it all, and that's where we landed.
Terrific. Any thoughts?
Yeah, there's I don't disagree with we've seen a lot of benefit in the places that we wanted it most.
Yep.
I wanted some on Lincoln Street, but that hasn't happened yet, but I think we've seen the success, and maybe we need to take some time not having it to get more success. But just to for the future consideration, there is a new program, a new department at the state level called Housing Champions Program, and it looks at towns and cities that have made an effort to add affordable housing into used every tool in the book that they can to add affordable housing to the community. You would say I would be reluctant to get rid of this because of that, because what happens with this is if a town is named a housing champion, then we get to the front of the line for infrastructure money, free money. So we can put in the infrastructure we need to support the new housing. So while I want to keep this as a tool that will I think put us to the top of the line, the Housing Champion Program is just hiring people now, and they won't have their rules made until July, September, or whenever they kind of feel like it. So if we want to reinstate this because that becomes more attractive to getting money for infrastructure, we can come back.
Yes, the language is important, and we don't know it yet.
Thank you. Any thoughts or comments?
I do have some thoughts, and I'm very respectful of the recommendation of the Housing Advisory Committee. I want to state that right up front. But there are other considerations here. The development of a vigorous tax base is a huge consideration. And was that at all discussed at the Housing Advisory Committee, or because there was no reference to that?
I think our thought process, anyway, again, feel free, there's other people in the room that were there, but I think it was that we used the tool very well, that it did what we designed it to do. And that now we may be giving incentive to projects that may not need it. And that, I think, is the issue, and that's why I think the pushback's been there. I do agree with what you're saying. There's still more spots that I think we need to focus on, what have you. But I think what our thought process was clean slate, give it a year, and then come back and look at it and decide, but, respectfully.
Yeah, I have some skepticism about that approach. I don't have any problem with the long-term goal. I think to refashion the tool to create more housing is a great idea. I just don't understand why we have to pull this off the table. The Economic Development Commission that was in place at the time that this was adopted worked really hard to get this adopted. It was an uphill battle, and I'm loath to recommend to take this away without another plan in place. If the board is being too generous with the tool, we can have a conversation amongst this board about how we want to approach that. But we just had an application tonight that we felt was worthy of the tool. I don't know if the process that you're outlining, Darren, is the best process. Again, there are multiple goals to 79E, and it's great that there are affordable housing options that are either in the RSA or are considered being packed in there. I'm not quite sure which it is. And I would be a champion for including those things in a revised RSA. I'd just like to take the old one away and do the new one at the same time. I don't want to take this out of our toolbox without something going in immediately. It's been such an important thing. And I agree with you that Water Street is not that in need of this anymore, but we included Lincoln Street and the section of Portsmouth Ave between High Street and Green Hill Ave when we originally pushed for the adoption of this, because there are buildings and lots that are incredibly underutilized in those two areas as well. Water Street, yeah, maybe the board does need to talk about taking a break on offering these tax incentives to downtown Water Street developers. But I'd be very loath to take it off the table and then say, all right, we'll put it back in later. It was hard to get this adopted. And I caution the board. Thank you. I appreciate you hearing me on that.
Do you want me to follow up on that? Just for clarification purposes, it's that we felt that Water Street was vitalized already, and that we don't need to offer incentives for our downtown area. It's already there.
I understand.
Okay.
Can I
I'm
respond?
just clarifying.
I understand, but
So you
I'm
didn't hear
really
that.
focused on, no, I did hear that.
Okay.
I'm really focused on Lincoln Street and Portsmouth Ave.
Yes, so were we.
But we already have them in the zone now. But you're talking about taking it all away.
Selectman Gilman.
Let me propose a compromise. Because we feel, and I agree with Selectwoman Belanger, that Water Street has had the greatest advantage, or taken the greatest advantage of this, and we've seen it work successfully, that we have to adopt this and describe the areas that we want to see developed. So maybe instead of pulling back the whole thing, we vote to change and remove the Water Street area from the 79E area districts and concentrate on Lincoln Street and Portsmouth Ave.
There are a couple other things in there we need to address, such as transferability, which we've found to be an issue. And so I would not in any way be opposed to getting together the Housing Advisory Committee if the chair and other folks want to do that, and coming back with another version of it using all the latest iterations of what they do have, including the housing opportunity zones, which does exist, and that is, we have that language. What we don't have is what Ms. Gilman was pointing out, is they're working on something now. Now, you know better than me if perhaps that would be a done deal before we could adopt it, or we'd have to maybe adopt it as we can, and then
They won't have their rules ready until next year, late in the year.
because there are significant changes that took place between the time it was adopted in 2014, the version that you folks are bound by now, than exists now, and the ones now are much better, frankly. They've done a really good job of massaging it. So I'd be, if the board chooses, I'm happy to work with a hack and come back with a different version, possibly even with a different map, which you have the ability to do.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm sorry, you heard me earlier. I mean, I hesitated to vote on that last motion. I was thinking less amount of years, and I think it's because, I mean, I see Water Street in that area as just a spot where I don't think that we need to continue to grant relief. It's a very desirable place, and folks are lining up. I mean, we've had no shortage of businesses coming in, but I don't want to just take away a tool from the toolbox that we may need later. So I think if we could find a way to keep the tool, but maybe not grant some of the tax relief in certain areas, and
But I don't understand why we can't just remove this.
The C1 Central
Yeah.
Downtown and Waterfront, those two areas, right?
And then add up where Enna's is, like that sort of.
That actually is in there. The Front Street portion up by the train tracks are.
Is that it?
But I will say that the
Does this go all the way to the train tracks?
It does, yes. Actually, I believe it goes actually across. I could be wrong.
I thought it did.
I think it goes actually across.
Toward Shooter, that way, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It does. I believe it has Prescott Pump. And,
Okay. I am oriented now on that.
Right.
But I will say that in our discussions, because we did give this a lot of consideration, the Housing Advisory Committee, I think it was actually 4 meetings. We talked about it. So,
Yes,
we
it
did
started
kind of
in
talk
June.
it through pretty good. And I think, I don't want to speak for them, but I'd be very happy to go back, and I think redrawing it would probably be appropriate. I will say, though, that just so you folks know, until a vote happens, we can redraw it and we can bring it to you guys, but until a vote happens, you're bound by what you have now.
Yeah, understood.
I know, and so, I mean, in the interest of not doing what we just did, because I don't want to keep inviting all of these incentivized projects forward, and I also don't think it's fair to change the rules midstream, right?
Right.
So it's not fair to say to him, you know what, we've changed our minds and we're changing. But I do think that there is some utility in saying, actually, we're thinking about this and we're removing this downtown corridor, because I am so in favor of workforce housing and how we can bake that more into these additional proposals, and maybe we could bake that into and adopt that into the downtown place. Like that would be something I would be really interested in, but I'm not interested in market value business revitalization in our downtown core.
Can I say that? So I think I understand what you're saying?
Yes.
So what you're saying is don't take C1 out of it, but if you're going to do C1, it's going to have to include a component that has affordable housing.
Right.
It would strictly be that? Is that what the board is saying? Strictly be
That
for
would be my
affordable
preference.
housing.
That would
in
be
the
my
downtown.
preference also. I have to look into.
Which may never happen, but that would be
But
where
I want
we would
us
consider
to be able to consider that as part of an application.
Well, right now, like I said, unfortunately, you're bound by what's there.
Right.
You can choose, and you saying that and you folks feeling that way is very public and understandable. So if someone comes in and I'm going to review an application, I'm going to say that this is what the board discussed and know that going in, and then if they don't have a component, you may well say, look, this is how we feel. We're going to re-adopt this, or at least put something forward for the public to consider in March.
Because right now, the language doesn't say you can, support something because it provides housing and or low-income housing. So it's just housing.
It's completely at your discretion, frankly.
So the Housing Advisory Committee, I have the draft in front of me. That was something that we were looking to do, and then they passed the zoning and the other toolbox stuff. So that's why we thought, instead of going through all these hoops and putting it on the ballot for March, we were going to wait to see what the language was and how we could incorporate that. Okay, that said, Darren brought something up, and I want to stress the
Transferability.
Yeah, that word. Right now, things are transferable, and that has posed a problem. It has yes, it has created an issue.
I'm sorry, what?
The tax incentive is transferable to.
It's transferable, so if you buy a condo, you get that tax break for as long as,
Just the builder.
not, it doesn't.
For the years.
For the years.
For the year.
Purchaser.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're fine with that. That was one of the things that,
No, that is what the voters approved.
oh, I
That's what
know,
I'm saying.
but that's one of the things that we talked about, that we've had, the voters approved it, but I don't, put it this way, some of the people that have come to me did not quite understand that was going to be what happened.
Right.
So that's why we were trying to fix it, or tweak it a little bit, and
Okay, can I add something to that?
yes, please do.
So what Nancy's saying is true in other communities, and they've chosen to stop the transferability, but yeah.
Thank you.
And when I think you see the cases, I think you may well agree, I certainly agree, that's something, I know the town manager feels the same way.
Yeah, no, I mean, to articulate that a little more finely, the person that took the risk was the developer.
True.
The person that bought the condo, there's no risk. They knew what the price was when they bought it. So getting rid of transferability is absolutely fine and should be done. If I could just comment on Selectwoman Gilman's suggested compromise, I would be totally in favor of that. I'm loath to just pull this all the way out of the box with the idea that at some point we'll get around to putting it back in. It's an important tool for Lincoln Street and Portsmouth Ave, and I'm fine with emphasizing workforce housing as a portion of this. I do think that we need to continue to look at developing our tax base as well. That should be a goal as well. Maybe it's a lesser goal than the affordable housing, but I don't think we should lose sight of that. How much value has been added to the tax rolls by the development boom that 79E created in downtown
I would say
Exeter?
significant amount, and if I could channel Doug Eastman for about half a second, he'd be like, well, you lost this amount of dollars, so it's
for a certain number of years.
For a certain number of years, so.
And then forever after that.
I agree with you.
We have the benefit in our tax base.
So perhaps the Housing Advisory Committee is probably the right venue for that to go to
Well,
continue with
we've
that.
already started it. We have your draft. I have your draft where we left off. We were just concerned about the timing, how much time we had left. So we just kind of refocused.
Work fast, we'll do it.
Right. So a couple of questions that I don't know the answer to. One, as far as the transferability, got it. Is that baked in?
We would write that into the covenant, is my understanding.
Okay, but
Make
for right
sure
now,
it's not transferable.
It's there, right? So we
It
would have
has
to.
been.
Right, so.
Sorry, you have the ability to adopt it, or excuse me, provide the incentive any way you want, so.
Okay, so-
We didn't mention it tonight because I knew this second piece was coming, but I would suggest that from now on, that's something that I would, as I make recommendations to you folks, if things come in between now and when we perhaps do go back to
Yeah.
the voters, that I suggest we don't allow that.
Well, that's where I want to know right now. What we have right now, that's baked in there? Or no?
If we don't put anything else, if we don't put a caveat on it, then yes, it is.
Right.
So we have the power to eliminate that transferability.
Yes.
As it's written now and
Yes.
adopted by the voters.
Yes.
Then that should be, I would say, that's something that we should do going forward as standard practice.
If this project had condos in it, we'd have been discussing that, because this is apartments.
Great. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It was hard to get this adopted. I'm going to repeat that. And to just pull it back, ask the voters to pull it back without anything else, again, I'm loath to do that. All right, I'll be quiet now.
So process-wise, would we have to repeal and replace kind of thing with the updated 7090? Because we have to use a defined
You're
map.
looking at me, but that's a town manager.
There are new sections of the law that would require separate adoption by the legislative body. So we would have to go to town meeting with those specific sections to get them adopted.
And change the map.
And change the map, correct. If that was the will of the board.
Well, we should review what's changed in 79E.
I'm very happy to put the whole thing together and bring it back. Using that just advisory committee as the sounding board.
I'm just trying to get a sense from the board of is revision of the areas where this is focused and the goals, is that really what we're pushing for? And is there a sense on the board that pulling this out of the toolbox without revising it is not what we want to do, or no, not necessarily?
I was thinking at first of just yanking it.
Yeah.
But your arguments were very strong.
I'd like
I think
Mr. Wyndham to come back, yeah.
You still have time to change it.
Yeah.
We sure do.
Not much time, but time.
Well, I thank you all for hearing my case. I appreciate it.
So
and I know that we haven't made any decisions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know I was one of the vocal ones about 79E in terms of just questioning whether it was still a tool that we needed in the toolbox, given the amount of development we've had with it in the downtown area and the program itself. And the urge that I would make is at least that guidelines be established and put down for the future if the program is going to stay, because there is a cost to it.
Yep.
And I know I've said that.
I know some towns have, their governing bodies have just said 5 years flat.
Yep.
That's all we're ever going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have some draft proposals that we were working on, but we're getting a little tight on time. So we'll go back to the drawing board? Well, not the drawing
No,
board.
yeah.
We'll pick it
Continue,
back
right.
up.
Right, not the drawing board.
Right, no, yeah, I just misspoke for a moment there. Yes, but the transferability, we felt a number of people that attend these meetings have heard from a lot of town people who are really concerned about some of it, and they felt that although it served its purpose in that time for revitalization of the Ioka building and a few others, that time has passed. It served its purpose as far as that goes.
For the downtown.
For the downtown.
Yes.
So, Mr. Dean, timeline-wise, in order for a potential article to be, when would you like Mr. Wyndham to come back?
Second meeting in December.
Okay. The 18th?
Yeah, fine.
Are you okay? Because the Housing Advisory Committee meets on the 8th.
Yeah, I'll have something for us at that meeting to look over. I think probably.
You want me to resend? You have the draft. I can resend it just to make sure you got it.
Yeah, please do.
And the discussion can continue into January.
Understood.
As well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could invite anybody here who wants to come at that meeting. It's a public meeting.
It's a
So if
public
anybody has
meeting.
input,
Right.
Yes.
we could put the date out there, and happy to have people give us input.
That's how we do this. That is how we do.
Thank you very much. Good discussion.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Darren, I can tell you it was September 6th that you sent me the draft. You're welcome.
Okay. Regular business. There are no abatements, credits, or exemptions this evening. We do have one approval. This is the annual placement of the sign, the Tonry Christmas tree at the end of Route 88. They write to us every year for approval. If there are no questions, comments, I would entertain a motion to approve the Tonry Christmas tree sign to be placed at the end of Route 88 from November 23rd through December 24th,
So moved.
2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. Mr. Dean?
Yes, few things tonight. One is that the tax bills are now out. They were mailed, and just thank you to Melissa Heights for all her work and the assessing office, Janet Witten for her work on getting the tax bills ready to go and mailed. The town share of the rate, I believe I've reported it before, but it's $623 per thousand, and that's a 4.5% increase. For a $300,000 home, the total tax increase is $609. The town's share of that is $81, so that's about 13.3% of the increase. So we're a small amount of that. For residents to know that the transfer station is open this Friday from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. That is the day after Thanksgiving. The town offices are closed at noon on Wednesday, and they'll be closed again on Friday. And then the Budget Recommendations Committee process concluded last Thursday night with the CIP meeting. So I know Chairman Kelly is going to be coming back before the board on December 4th to give you an update as to where the budget stands. And then I did want to say thank you to Riverwoods. We were able to visit there last week and give them a state of different projects and had some good conversation with the residents. So that was a very good time. The assistant town manager accompanied us as well, was part of that. Chairman Nico and myself and Melissa. And then we've scheduled the town Novak room for Christmas appreciation holiday drop-in party, and that would be December 14th at 6:30 to 8 o'clock, unless the board feels that it should be done at another time or day.
I'm fine with that day and time.
December 14th from 6:30 to 8.
Okay. That should work fine, Mr. Dean.
Okay. And that's what I had for tonight.
And the parade?
Oh, the parade is Saturday, December 2nd.
And what time?
5 o'clock.
And they'd like us there
at 5.
At 5?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we get the fire engine this year? We nabbed.
Typically walk, but
I know,
Yeah.
we nabbed the old engine one year because.
Can't do it.
My understanding is the fire truck can make it.
Yeah, no, last year it was taken by somebody else.
It's a nice route to walk.
Yeah.
I'm good with walking.
Mr. Thayer,
Good to
remember?
see folks and,
Oh my God, my week.
okay, any other questions for Mr. Dean?
Oh, I do have one.
Go,
sorry.
please, yes.
How are things progressing with options for parking enforcement? Have you made any?
have not, I haven't been able to connect with the chief on that, but I do plan on doing that this week.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Select Board Committee reports, Selectwoman Belanger.
Okay, well, I was actually away for a few days, so I have a few budget meetings to catch up on. But I did watch the Conservation Commission meeting from November 14th. And they had the DPW proposal to upsize the existing Webster Street pump station. They went through the process, that report, I will tell you, I have not read it. It's like 185 pages, so FYI, I have not read it all, but a lot of questions. Ultimately, there were no objections to the proposal, and they were going to send a letter to the state saying so. The $20,000 Moose Plate grant, they discussed that for Rains Barn. Also the $50,000 T-Mobile grant that's pending. They'll know about that fairly soon. Again, I did not watch the budget meetings that I missed, but they were talking about a request to defer some funding for Conservation Commission, so I'll get more into that after I get caught up if I need to. But if we do defer some funding for Conservation Commission, they did point out that if they got the grant, they would have 2 years suspended. So it wouldn't be for naught. So that's good. And let's see, they're talking about a potential bird watching program, Ryder property. This is the Powder Mill property that we had already come before us. There was a little bit of a concern, so I just want to put a pin in this, that it was supposed to be public access, but with no parking, and now they're saying no public access. So the Kristen and the gentleman who is working on this with the other two towns is looking into language. One of the things that was said was possibly the gentleman that owns the property would grant access on a case-by-case basis. So is this something I want the board to be aware of for when it comes to us, back to us, because it will. And also that there are currently no trespassing signs, and maybe they'll just leave the deed vague. I don't know. There was just, I wasn't there to ask questions, but there's a few concerns, and some of the Conservation Commission members had concerns too, so please put a pin in that for future. 6 hour employees volunteered to repair a few of the bridges in need, so that was nice of them. And then there was the pedestrian parking traffic study meeting that I missed. I was away. They did send an email on that. So tentative next public hearing number 2, is tentatively the evening of December 13th. Planning board was the 16th. I made it back in time for that. We had one application that we granted the line lot adjustment, but we had to table another waiver because Dave Sharples was here and we had some serious questions. So we have to have them come back. And then the person you had that I recused was on that calendar, but they were not able to attend. And then we had a wetlands conditional permit request that was approved for what was, and I'm not going to say this right, Garups? Galerups, thank you. I knew I wasn't going to say it right. They had approval to build their warehouse for their slippers, but decided that they weren't going to do that, but now it's going to be a frozen food warehouse. So they did a little bit of modification on that. And just 2 final things that I'd like to suggest that in the future for scheduling, we really look at what happens. I know budget time is crazy, but see if we can maybe do a little bit something different so that we're not scheduling 3 meetings in one night. Dave Sharples his plan was to give the presentation, then run over to the library, and I will say, without hesitation, he was needed in both places, but, and I understand that, there were a few other people that it was felt to go earlier, but I just think, planning board meetings, we already have next year's schedule, so maybe we can.
So, Mr. Dean, one remedy to that is planning board meets every second and fourth Thursday.
Right.
That's pretty consistent, so maybe
Well, it wasn't for November.
have CIP night on Wednesday, because there
Right.
seem to be less meetings on a Wednesday.
Right. But we still meet on they still meet on Thursdays, because they change in November and December too, because of the holidays.
But if we do it Wednesday, I think
Right, just something.
remedies that.
Very good.
Yes, thank
Thank you.
And then could we consider quiet please meeting signs in the hallways?
Out here?
Yeah, and downstairs, when I was trying to listen to conservation, there was so much noise in the hallway from people leaving. They don't think about meetings going on.
In the wheelwright room?
Just in the hallways, for out here and downstairs, it's like, something that advises people or makes them kind of like a flashing yellow light, right? When you're driving, caution, caution. Just something to at least try to get the noise down in the hallways.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
And very shortly, the Heritage Commission met and discussed a couple of things that we need to do, the programs that we've done in the past, window restoration, what color is my house, how-to kind of thing that we've gotten grants for all of them. We need to do them again. But we felt really accomplished doing the first time. But the discussion is what can we do more to be out there. So there's that, and then currently if you want to get one of those plaques for your house that has the Alewife on it, an Alewife sign that talks about it says who built it, if you can find that out, and what their occupation was, which the Historical Society will help you do. That responsibility should transfer over to the Heritage Commission from the HDC, because the Heritage Commission covers the whole town, whereas the HDC only covers the defined areas. And then we will have a demolition review for 45 South Street Tuesday at 11 a.m. It's a little house stuck in the back that nobody knows is really there. And then the Energy Committee had a meeting where we just updated on the thing I spoke about before, the window dressers project. A couple of the members had gone to see how it works up in Berlin or Laconia, or Lebanon. and we came back very excited that it looked really simple. We'd get training, we'd get volunteers. Recommended that this is building those, instead of using a hairdryer to blow plastic over your windows, these would actually make frames for the plastic that you could remove and put back. And I recommended that we talk to SST about getting them in on the, putting it all together, because pieces are made elsewhere, but then come here and get assembled. And the HDC was canceled, so that's it.
Thank you for the update. Selectwoman Count? Okay. Selectman Sharkey.
I was not at the last meeting, so I'm going to rattle these meetings off that I attended. Facilities Committee on 10/25 down in the Wheelwright Room. Later that night, I went to the Budget Recommendation Committee. I think it was Police and Fire were on the docket that night. Third, I was planning to attend a Sustainability Advisory Committee meeting, but it was canceled because of no quorum on the 7th of November. Another BRC meeting on the 14th. I met with our chairman about the possible reorg of committees. I'll let you describe that more. And then finally, on the 16th, I attended the CIP meeting for the Budget Recommendation Committee. And I want to end my report by saying how amazing our Budget Recommendation Committee was this year. The usual stalwarts were there, our essential citizen, the chair, Bob Hall. Bob Kelly, pardon me. All the vets that have served on that committee so well. And then there were like new people that had never served before who were like asking great questions. It's a great Budget Recommendations Committee. I am just in love with the work that they've done, and I can't wait to take it up as a board.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So I felt like you, Selectwoman Belanger, last week channeled some of your energy while you were on a well-deserved break.
Thank you.
I attended the Arts and Culture Committee, and that's why I missed the Water Sewer BRC, and they talked about delivering the statue that we accepted the donation of. They talked about working with DPW and Police and Fire, potentially making some of our crosswalks in certain places in town more artistic. And they'll get back to us with more on that later. They've been working with Parks and Rec on permitting the upstairs and the gallery, and again, that's in the draft stage. And at my suggestion, they've agreed to change their date and meet on Wednesdays so that we can come to this building, and they will now be taped because they're meeting presently upstairs in the art gallery across the street where there's no recordings of the meetings. So that will commence next month. BRC, I attended the library rec as well as the CIP, and I echo everything Selectman Chartrand said. No need to repeat it, but it really was a great committee this year. River Advisory Committee, we had more people in the Novak room than we had a deliberative session last year, and unfortunately, we could not meet because we lacked a quorum. So given the political temperature of the topic, which is the Pickpocket Dam, we will reschedule that meeting potentially for Wednesday, November 29th. I believe we have a quorum according to our chair, but more to come on that. What else? Attended the Riverwoods, graciously invited us back in September, and due to scheduling conflicts on my end, had to cancel twice, but they were able to get us in at the last minute, and Assistant Town Manager Roy and Mr. Dean joined me. It was a packed room. It was very exciting. We premiered the police public safety complex video. They were excited to be the first to view that. What a great hour, and they kept it to an hour. Fantastic questions, great conversation, and I offered that we were always happy to go back and visit, so I want to thank them again for hosting us.
Was there a red carpet at the premiere?
There would have been, I think, if I had given them a heads up, but they were, it's just a great crowd, very engaged, and great questions.
Very
There were,
quick.
And that video was
despite what Mr. Cameron said, there were no softballs tossed. They were
Oh,
good, they were
really?
very good questions.
Yeah, that was a great video. That was well done.
We, back to something you mentioned at the last meeting, Selectwoman Belanger, Mr. Cameron and I did speak afterwards about recruiting Riverwoods folks to serve as volunteers. We did an active recruiting during our speech. We even mapped out some that are a little less time committed and some that are more, so hopefully we generated some positive energy for
Wow, you
volunteer
had a
work.
productive night. Yeah.
Also sat in with assistant town manager and the town manager, potential DPW candidate, DPW director candidate. And Mr. Chartrand and I met on possibly reorganizing the, that was last Thursday.
16th.
Yeah. The committees, we took some notes. We had some great conversation. We're in the process of following up with some staff, and we will have recommendations for the board on December 18th. And I think that's all I had.
Can I just add a revision? My apologies to Mr. Kelly for confusing him with our other essential Bob, Mr. Hall.
Well, that's okay.
The train guy.
I felt awful, and I'm going to apologize publicly to Officer Sheehan because I called him by a different first name, and I felt bad about that. It's Taylor. Anyway.
I'll apologize to Joanna for thinking I heard what you said a few meetings ago and then not hearing what you said. I still feel bad about that, Joanna. You were trying.
We had two letters of correspondence, the first of which is from the Department of Transportation, notifying Town of Exeter of a one-time payment in the amount of $88,266.28. Mr. Dean, did you want to comment briefly on that?
Just that it is a one-time payment, and so that's part of that bucket of funding that I was talking about earlier tonight.
Very good. And then sadly, Comcast has notified us that they will no longer be carrying a shop HQ due to a breakdown in contract negotiations. The board calendar, we meet again December 4th and December 18th. We have the parade December 2nd, 5 o'clock, and December 14th is the holiday get-together for our volunteers. Any other business from the board?
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving to all. Have a happy, healthy, and safe holiday from us to you and your families. I do have to ask, though, if I'd entertain a motion if we could enter into non-public under RSA 91A32A.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Chartrand?
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Aye.
And clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. The board will move into non-public.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.